Good morning. My video about my problem in Detroit has caused some consternation. I've been criticized by right-wing Chabad as being too soft. I've also been accused of certain rabbis of being a liar. So I'd like to confront that issue head-on. As I told you, I was told by Reb Shlomo Luz B'Pem Mole about a year or two ago, I think it's about 2 years now, that a certain Rav prohibited the dishes of one of his followers who accidentally took some Lubavitch turkey meat and used it in his pots. And that person made a big tumult. Subsequently, the Vad prohibited the bulk meat of Chabad Kranheits Hechsher to go through the normal channels, the preparation, and be put out with the fresh meat. And now they claim that it's not because of this particular event, but rather because Rabbi Heinemann and the Star K have not recommended the Chabad Kranheits Hechsher. Now this is astounding because the bulk of the chickens and the turkeys that come into One-Stop Kosher are from Aaron's. Aaron's, for those who don't know, is the name of Rabbi Rubashkin. His name is Aaron Rubashkin, a personal friend of my mother's. My mother played with Aaron when she was 2 years old. In other words, Aaron's was started by Lubavitcher, who was forced by the federal government to close down and sell his company for next to nothing, and it was bought, and the name wasn't changed because Aaron's was a good name, and Aaron's actually broke the monopoly of Empire Kosher, which kept the prices down. But the most important factor is that the Crown Heights Hechsher, for what is called Sher Habor, poultry products, comes from that same plant, with the bulk of the shochtim and the mashgichim, the same ones that are used for Aaron's. So you have to ask yourself, if it's the same shochtim and the same mashgichim and the same chickens and the same turkeys, how come the Star K permits Aaron's and doesn't permit Sher Habor? And the answer is startling. It's called politics. Shouldn't surprise anyone. It's called Elokei Chesef, Elokei Zohav, gods of gold and gods of silver. Now, either the Vad is stupid, or the Vad has accepted this particular procedure of prohibiting or limiting Lubavitch meat from entering the store on 10 Mile and Greenfield, which is the main store for almost the entire community. I'm asking this openly. It is, in my opinion, impossible for the same chicken and the same turkey, using the same shochtim, basically, maybe one or two shochtim different, and the same mashgichim, because they can't have, there's only a supervisory area, but they have to have mashgichim to check the birds, using the same people on the line, using the same, basically the same hashgacha over the entire plant, which is a very good hashgacha, Weissmandel. And that the only thing different between the Crown and the Aaron's is the wrapping, basically. You have to ask yourself why the Vad HaRabbanim, without my knowledge, without my understanding, why they've agreed to this. The answer is prejudice. The answer is trying to push out the Crown Heights label from the stores, because Lubavitch packaged meat comes in and is put in the frozen counter, and it costs 50 cents a pound more than the stuff that gets cut up. So most people go by their pocketbook. It's 50 cents less per pound. They'll buy the stuff that's cheaper. And in that way, the Lubavitch Hashgacha will be relegated to not having any customers and eventually go out of business. That's the theory behind it. Now, I don't care about, competition, unfair competition. It existed when Empire had the monopoly. But to do this under the guise of halacha is unconscionable. I'm not a liar. I accurately described what was told to me. It was confirmed by Reb Shlomo Luz that there was somebody who made a tumult. But the former head of the Vad HaRabbanim has called me a liar and is going to be right of me now. I'm supposed to be frightened in my boots, quaking. I have nothing against him. Nice fellow. But don't tell me, give me garbage, that this is halacha. What did Shlomo Luz tell me was the problem with Lubavitch? That the Lubavitcher meat or people did not allow inspections by Rav Moshe Heinemann's Star K. The Star K did not allow Lubavitch meat in their stores or under their purview because the Crown Heights Hechsher people did not allow their supervision. First of all, I spoke to the Crown Heights people. It's Shaki v'Chazov. They allow people to come to see what's going on. What they don't allow is very simple. That one company of Hashgacha does not become the balabatim of their Hashgacha. In other words, it's tantamount, what Star K was asking was tantamount for the Star K to oversee the OU. Otherwise, they wouldn't accept them. The Star K made up a story. It's a made-up story because I spoke to the principals. I spoke to Rav Avram Azdaba, who's the Rav HaMashgiach, the Rav that's responsible for the Hashgacha of the Shor Habor. I spoke to him because I was upset. People were telling me that there were shilas on the Shor Habor chickens because of Tzemes Hagidim, because of the sinews that are at the edge of the thigh bone, which is a problem everywhere. It becomes a problem when you have very heavy chickens. There's no difference between the Crown Heights chickens and the chickens that come from Aaron's. They're the same size. It's the same exact chicken. Remember, Aaron's was owned by Ribashkin and went under two labels, the Crown Heights label and the Aaron's label. The same thing exists today. And basically the same staff exists there. You can't get enough shochtim to come to replace the other shochtim because you're chechting once a week or once in 2 weeks. I don't know how often the Shorport people checht. They slaughter. What has happened is plain and simple prosecution or persecution of the Shor Habor label. And if you don't believe me, I went also to the counter where you have the deli meats, and I asked, where are the Shor Habor products? He says, we don't display them. I'm not allowed to display them as per the order of the Vad HaRabbanim. Those are the words of the person behind the counter. You're going to call me a liar on that also? Huh? So he says, you can special order it. I'm not interested in special order. I want to understand why meal marts and why Aaron's can be displayed and why Shor Habor can't be displayed. If you're saying that there's no problem You have no problem with prepackaged stuff. Why should you have a problem with the prepackaged sliced meat? The answer is you're assering the Lubavitch meat from everybody else. God forbid somebody should go ahead and pick up some Shor Habor meat instead of Aaron's best. The Shor Habor happens to be a better hashgacha. They're makpid on more things than are the Aaron's people. Lubavitch has its own hidurim and its own standards for shachtim and for how things are done. I don't know what's going on now, but in my time when I had, a little bit of a handle in it, Lubavitch shachtim were considered the best shachtim in America. And Lubavitch has hidurim that they don't have anywhere else. To say that the Shor Habor people violate the hashgacha, violate the Torah, violate halacha, or have some kind of shaila is an absurdity, a lie, and wickedness. It's called rishus, and it's fueled by hatred, jealousy, and what is called avarice or taivas hamomin, which is where I'm saying this is all about. My problem in Detroit has not gotten any better. My protest is still there. I demand that the Lubavitch meat, the Shor Habor meat, which is exactly the same as the Aaron's best, which comes prominently and has gotten the stamp of approval of the Vat HaRabbanim, which even though they're not there they were never there in the plant. So how could they give the case? But they take the testimony of Rabbi Weissmandel, call Rabbi Weissmandel and ask if he permits, if he says that there's any shaila on the Shor Habor, for which reason then you could say legitimately we're not going to let the Shor Habor, which is exactly the same chicken with exactly the same shachtim, maybe one or two different people. And I guarantee you the shochet that comes from Lubavitch for Shor Habor is a greater Yirei Shamayim on average than the rest of the shachtim. I guarantee you that, because they wouldn't do it otherwise. If they had a better shochet and a bigger Yirei Shamayim, then they wouldn't change the line at all. If they add a shochet, if they add a mashgiach, it's for Yirei Shamayim, not for personal profit. I know the people that are involved, the straightforward people, Levertov, Rabbi Levertov, and Rav Avram Azdaba, who's every bit as great a goyin in halacha than anybody in the Star K, just because he's not known, because he doesn't publicize. He's a quiet guy, sits and learns all days, and he knows his halacha. And if there were any problems, he would take care of it. God forbid that any Erlich Yid would knowingly give questionable items to Klal Yisrael. And I say this out of pain to my colleagues. Stop doing this. We're talking about the lives of people, not pocketbook issues, which you're reducing this to. My problem is Elokei Chesed, Elokei Zav have become issues that have infected the Vat HaRabbanim and the Mashgichim. If there was a real legitimate issue, it could have been discussed with me or Rabbi Silberberg or any other Lubavitcher in the town, including my Eidim, Rabbi Goyen, Rabbi Shuya Werner. And I guarantee you, the only reason why this is happening is because of a concerted effort by these people to extricate Lubavitch from Hashgacha.